Welcome to the Council of Moms. Some of us have headphones and some of us don't. It's okay. We're all going to be okay.
Some of us are DJs and some of us
aren't. The Council of Moms, not all heroes wear capes. Most are in yesterday's yoga pants. Like that one?
I love that.
True that.
And the Council of Moms, where we'll never tell you, you already told me that.
That
right?
One's so accurate.
That one is so, you already told me that.
Why do our kids
I will never
get
say
so
that
bugged?
on the Council of Moms. I will never say that
I
to
know.
you.
Why do our kids get so bugged when you tell them something you've already told them? Like, why does that make them so mad?
But then we don't get mad
I know.
when they don't do the thing that we've asked them 8 times to do. That's in their best interest.
There you go. There you go.
So weird.
We love our kids. We want to help them. I love that you're here. Welcome, Amy, Emily, and G. Thanks for being here. I'm going to have a seemingly simple question today for the council, but it's not going to be an easy answer. Are you intrigued?
Totally.
I caught my teenager. I know. I caught my teenager lying. What do I do? When you catch
him. Did we hit the buzzer?
I know, yeah.
Answer. No.
Gee, tell me what to do, because I get livid. First, I calm down.
Oh man, guys, I don't. You guys got to start it off because this one was a hard one for me.
Really? Why is that? Why is it so hard?
Well, I just feel like we've tried to build a relationship of our students. Yeah, there you go.
They are.
Yeah.
They are.
Our kids. Yeah, there you are. Just feeling comfortable with sharing, right? Because sometimes when you hear, Mom, I got to tell you something, you're like, what?
Do you have to tell me?
Right. You brace yourself. You go to the worst things. But I feel like most of the time our kids have been pretty honest with us. I think where honesty has kind of swung the other way is they don't want to share the hurt or the pain they're experiencing.
Tell me a little bit more about that. Yeah.
My husband had a word for this. It was like one night, you have those late night talks with your kids and they're coming in and they're overwhelmed and they're crying and you're trying to get to the heart of the matter, And so you kind of go around about and finally you're able to hit it. Like, this is the reason why I'm so upset. And my husband would say to my daughter, and this is part of the Samoan language, aiu, it's a word. And it means selfish. And it was interesting when he said that because it dawned on me that sometimes they want to hold things back. And it's a different form of lying. It's not just, I want to disobey and I'm not doing what you're telling me. But it's like, I don't feel like I should burden you with my truth. And so that's the kind of lying I feel like sometimes our kids are just afraid to open themselves up to sharing the truth to us because they feel like they're not or they're inadequate. We've had our kids deal with mental health, and that was an issue that really wasn't explored a lot by our community. And so that's what hurts me most is like, I can't be there to help you if you don't tell me what's going on. Right.
Oh, wow. Anyways. Yeah. I really appreciate that perspective because that's a full idea of our kids being able to share who they really are with us.
Which
is different, like, because lying is in like I'm not telling the truth about something that happened versus this idea of I'm going to hold back a little bit of who I am to you. Ooh, yeah. I think what a great way to like really expand this question.
To tell your child you are being selfish. You're not allowing us to walk with you, to be there for you, to lift you, to help you. Like, I want to help you, but you got to tell me how to best help you. So anyways, that's one of the things
we've gone through both of those things for sure. The holding back on how they really feel or what's going on emotionally. That was rough for us. Our daughter as a teenager really kept her anxiety and depression hidden because she didn't dare burden us as we're like tending to her very high needs, special, medically fragile brother who's all consuming in the caregiving. And she's like, you guys are so overwhelmed and so tapped out. taking care of him. She didn't. That's horrible. I hated that she felt that way. You know, we finally navigated through that to where she's a lot more open and honest, but I don't know. Yeah, I mean, all we can do is try to make it as safe as possible, right? For our kids to say what they really think, even not just emotionally, but like even
How
their
did you
opinions.
push through that, Emily?
I think, well, unfortunately, it had to get to crisis level, which you never want to go there. But it's so hard because our daughter would always act very resilient and very well adjusted, and she can cope with a lot of things, or at least she could. And so we thought, man, she's just so strong and she's so capable, and when really she was very crumbling inside, and that side of her was a little neglected. I think, especially this day and age, we just kind of have to be a little bit more even hyper aware of our kids' mental health and making it so they can be honest, knowing like, okay, we all deal with this. So if you feel like you're going through this, mom and dad understand. There's resources. I think sometimes kids don't even know that there's so many resources and things we can do as a family, or individual things, or meds, or whatever you need. I think talking about it more obviously is a huge deal. That's probably paramount, is just keeping the communication open. Yeah. And then there's that whole other kind of lying, which is like, I still don't know how to avoid that.
Yeah. Well, I think in either case, lying is a protection, right? It's either a protection from like, I don't really want to share with you all my deep feelings, or I don't want to get in trouble. When I learned that about anytime we're dishonest, we're sort, and our kids are trying to protect from something, that kind of helped me reframe, what is the reason behind the lie? And can we work through that? Are you afraid of me? Are you afraid, of what I'll think of you, or of what your consequence might be if, I find out whatever you did? Lying is really just protection mode.
This is so hard for me.
I think it is protection.
Yeah. This is very hard for me because, our adult daughter totally lied as a teenager. And I know there were times where I really was like reactionary and probably overreacting. But I'm like, okay, there has to be a right? Yeah. And lying triggers me more than anything. Like,
why does it make you so mad, Emily? Because it makes me like, it's not even about what you lied. No, it's just a break of trust. Like it just feels so devastating to me.
There are so many things my kids can do that I can handle, and I'm like, no problem, we'll work it out. But the lying is like devastation to me, and it just it pulls the rug out from under you, and you're like, well, now I don't know how I can trust you and when I can trust you, and you know what I mean? Like,
is really, our whole relationship a lie? Yeah, it's easy to go to the extreme, though.
So that's hard for me because now that my daughter's an adult, she knows that like when she does things that I don't agree with, there's not going to be this huge consequence like when she was a teenager. But when my 8-year-old lies, there has to be some sort of a consequence, and I do not know how to navigate this. Because, the lying makes me so angry, and I just want to punish him every time there's even a tiny fib, and always we're talking about it like, hey, whatever you do, whatever happens, just do not lie.
Exactly.
You don't have to tell us everything all the time. You don't have to tell me everything, but you can't lie. And we're struggling with this. And now I'm like, okay, I've already been through this and I still don't know what to do.
So same with my 10-year-old, recently he straightened out the truth about something, and once I found out the truth, I was like so mad. And then I'm like, but thank you for being honest. I really value and appreciate that. Like, how do we find the balance between like, I don't want him to think every time he comes to tell me the truth, that's when the hammer's going to come down. Because I feel like, how do I balance that?
Does he have a consequence for lying?
Yeah, what do you do then,
and what's an
Amy?
appropriate consequence?
We are working through really talking about responsibility. And so I got this from someone else. He fills out a responsibility form, you guys. I'm so down. Can't believe I love this
paperwork for lying. I love it.
And it's about like any kind of like quote unquote violation. I don't know what to say. Or exactly what to call it, but he just has to answer a bunch of questions like, what did I want to have happen, and did I violate any values that like our family values? How did it affect me? How did it affect other people? What how do I want to make it right? What do I want to have happen now? Is there something else? Did I have other options? So
Oh,
it's
wow.
a like, let's think through the consequences. He's a pretty impulsive guy. And so this is helpful to sort of, even if it happens after the fact, slow him down and like think through,
Mm.
yeah, what was my goal? And sometimes that's really helpful. He'll be like, oh, the thing I wanted to have happen was to play the iPad, you know, and this is how I thought I would get there, this like circuitous route. And so it can be helpful for me then to say, oh, if that's what you really wanted, then what do you think we could have worked out, you know, to get you there sooner or whatever? So I don't know, you
Do you
guys.
think this is helping?
Oh, I like
Do you think this is
this.
helping him see like the cons of lying, or like, oh, here's why it wasn't in my best interest to make this up or whatever?
Every so often we'll see a glimmer where he'll pause and be like, I don't want to fill out a responsibility sheet. So
The paperwork is the punishment.
yeah. So
Well,
I do
gotta tell
think, though,
you-
that idea of punishment, though, is always connected to lying. And I'm
So
really
hard.
curious about that
yeah.
because there is this, when I was faced with a really dramatic lie of omission of something that happened, of not telling me something that should have been disclosed to me,
Mhm.
my child at the time, once I realized why they kept it hidden, it was extenuating circumstances that did make me want to soften the punishment. And I'm trying to protect the identity of said child. So I'm sorry if I'm being cagey, but I do want to like respect my children's privacy. But
Totally.
it was
You're doing a
during
great
the
job.
pandemic when I was taking care of my
Mhm.
father, my children's father, my husband, and he's actively dying. I mean, he's dying. And so almost like all bets are off. This is an extenuating circumstance, unfortunately. And my kid was struggling and trying to hide it. And trying to hide it because mom and dad don't need one more thing to worry about. And I don't know how I'm feeling. So I'm just going to go and self-regulate the ways that I want to, but I don't want to, but I'm not going to tell them until I have to. And at one point, this kid had to. And I mean, we both just cried, right? Because I feel guilty for not having seen things. They feel guilty because they've done the very thing they were trying not to do, which was take care of everything themselves. So, and that, I always think of that when I think about what do you do when teenagers are lying, because that was the most dramatic experience I had, but the one where I was most filled with like love and compassion of like, this isn't just normal lying. This really is like a circumstantial, like, it's like, well, you lied. And so the, punishment fits the crime kind of thing. It was, there are no rules for this. This is a child and a parent relationship that needs to be preserved. I need to show this kid what kind of relationship I want to have in the future by how I react right now.
Wow. So
and
good.
not all lying cases, I think, with teenagers are like that. But in extreme cases, I do think it's okay and appropriate for you to take a step back and say, what's really going on?
Yeah. And so interesting too.
And not ignore it.
Sometimes lies are to protect us as parents, right? Where our kids might have a misunderstanding of what our emotional bandwidth is, or our capacity, or that of course we want to hear about, but kind of similar to what Emily was saying, that her daughter was like, I can't put another thing on my parents right now when they're so busy. Like, I think that's a new spin for me to think of kids lying to protect not just themselves, but maybe they think they're protecting parents too.
Well, I'm curious though, what you guys think of when a teenager lies, what you think an appropriate consequence should be when there isn't necessarily anything too complicated happening underneath. I don't talk to a lot of parents about like what those specific consequences were. And I'm just curious what other parents do.
I feel like as parents, it's hard because you want to stay consistent across the board, but then each child is different. And so
that is so true.
I feel like that relationship, like you're saying, Lisa, it really does come into play. But I feel like if your children see the value of you connecting one-on-one with their siblings, that also is appreciated as well, because you're allowing that relationship to be honest, in that you can welcome those conversations that are hard for them to have. So,
Yeah. If you can use it as a tool to welcome those conversations. Oh, that's interesting.
right.
That could be an opportunity then.
Yeah.
Like we have an emotionally charged situation and I can use this for us either to
Mhm.
be isolated or to bring us together.
I think punishment, obviously, well, I've already talked about, I'm such a softie, so punishment's always been hard for me. And I like thinking about punishment as giving and kids an opportunity to repair. So what does repair look like?
Okay.
So, does it look like, I mean, I don't know. I'm like I said, not very good at this, but accept that responsibility sheet. I told you about that's a solid.
I want an idea of repair.
I know Emily and I want a
You
coffee.
betcha. You betcha. Okay.
And what can a repair look like?
Yeah.
Like what could that look like?
Yeah, I think, most often for me, a repair can happen in a conversation, or for most of the things that have happened in our home, a repair is a conversation. But sometimes I like the idea that sometimes it means, I love it, G, you don't go to the next dance. That's part of it. You don't get the next opportunity. Like, you had some capital and you used it on this lie. And so now you don't have that capital for your next
Ooh.
opportunity. You guys, even talking about it gives me a pit in my stomach. I don't like, following
It
through
is
on that kind of
hard.
stuff. It's really
I
tough,
But I do think that, like, you bring up a good point about a consequence doesn't have to look like we think it is traditionally, that you can use it as an opportunity to teach a bigger principle. And I think the conversations that I've had with my teenager is this is really immature behavior. Little kids lie
yeah.
to protect themselves. Adults own up to their stuff. And if you
Mhm.
are kind of like what you were saying, G, like if this is how you want to live, then live
Yeah.
this way and be confident. The fact that you're lying about it comes across that you're not sure that this is how you want to live.
Mm.
So if you're going to want to live this way, and again, it could be lying about anything, like
Yeah.
doing your
Right.
homework, not doing your homework, breaking the law, not breaking the law, breaking curfew, breaking a home rule, whatever it is. It's like, do you want to be the kind of person where you do one thing and say another thing? Or do you want to be an adult? And it's kind of like this conversation. I've tried to have it to be this conversation of just the idea of lying, of not being able to take somebody at face value would make you a bad friend, someone who's
Mhm.
immature, and someone who we don't want to give a lot of responsibility and privileges to, because we're not sure how you're going to react to it, and that is different than, a different kind of conversation that doesn't have anything to do with relationships.
Yeah.
It's funny you mentioned about breaking the law. I remember my husband would take
Isn't
the
it funny
kids.
that I mentioned that? It is funny, isn't
Not
it?
that any one of our kids did that.
No, not at all.
We don't have experience with that.
Funny thing is, when my kids, mostly the boys, were young, my husband took them down to the jail. He
Stop
took them
it.
there, and this is this guy I'm married to. Like, he took them there, and it's like, hey, see this? Okay, do you guys want to be here? Well, then,
Wow.
think twice about it. But it's always like us kind of being 2 steps ahead of them, right?
Yeah.
In fact, and having that kind of repair, it's like, hey, don't get so far down the line that what you're expecting is going to blindside you. We don't want you to get there. But of course, they make the decisions, but I think, like you're saying, just showing them there's consequences, right? So
I also think that this is a good opportunity. I love that Amy brought this up about talking about what our family values are and what kind of family we want to be and the relationships we want to have and what kind of people we want to be, like, together. Like, you belong if you tell the truth, right? Like, that sense of belonging is characteristic of our family. And then I don't know. I mean, I think that having a little bit more of a philosophical view on lying and truth telling too can be a tool, I think, that we can use that we don't use, as much. And I think as parents, we can give them like that perspective.
We can solve anything if we can be honest with each other. And
Yeah.
I can manage my
We
emotions.
can face it together.
Yeah, we can fix it together. Or if you need to tell me something I'm going to disagree with, right? That I'm going to be, or disappointed that
that's
you
okay
made that
too.
decision. I can handle those hard feelings and we can do it together. So good.
You can tell the truth even when you hate the truth and the truth is not great.
And
Doesn't
I'm not going to be happy every time you tell me something that I disagree
That's
with.
okay.
And that's okay,
Yeah.
because that's what's like having a real relationship. You're not going to love everything I say. I'm not going to love everything you say. I think that turns it into a difference between disagreements of and setting yourself up to have a relationship as an adult, because we're not always going to see eye to eye.
And I like that, because I would always kind of remind myself, don't go down that rabbit hole. Like, don't get all the emotions and get all worked up. Just stay even keel and let them kind of know it's okay to share things with me. It's okay for you to move forward. It's better to focus on the positive versus like, oh, I'm bad. I shouldn't have done that. And then the poor kid is just like, I can't do anything right. So I love how you put that spin on it. We should help them kind of see the positive aspects of who they are versus always,
and
nagging them.
I've mentioned this in another conversation, but then we can have a business and personal. If there needs to be a consequence, sometimes it's more than a conversation, certainly. And there needs to be a consequence or an opportunity for repair. That's the business end of things. That's their opportunity. And our personal relationship is that we love them and that we see them and that, of course, they're not terrible people. And, there can be both in the relationship. It doesn't just have to all be about building them up. We can do both as long as the consequence comes without the shame and blame and, you're a terrible person.
I feel like you make a great point, because if you start with, hey, I love you, we want the best for you, but this behavior is not going to help you get there. Like showing that you're, like you're saying, you're on their side, you're cheering for them, you're rooting for them, but at the same time, the accountability aspect of it. So, yeah.
And then when we've done that, and we've perfectly modeled how we're going to have these like adult relationships to our kids, and we acknowledge it, and we're like, here's the business side, and also here's the personal side. Absolutely. We have that. We close that book, and then we go find our own council of moms, and we say to our moms, can you believe what they just told me? I have got a story for you. And then we can have our, I'm not kidding, our emotional reaction.
Yes.
And because we are
Right.
humans, and we need to be able to vent to our friends too, to be like, can you believe you lied to me about that? Can you believe she
Seriously.
said that? Like, and we do that, but not to our kids,
Yeah.
but to hear
Right.
to our council
Yeah.
of moms.
Don't go down the rabbit hole with your kids. Save
No,
it for here.
go down the rabbit hole with the council of moms. We have snacks. We will listen. We have snacks and beverages. Judgment-free zone. You can roll your eyes all you want, but then we can show up, I think, to our kids having felt like a whole human.
Right.
Of like, that was disappointing, but now I'm here and I'm ready to be there because I want a relationship with my kid. Thank you for indulging me on that last part. You guys are great. Thanks for joining the Council of Moms.
Such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.